What happens when law, business, and life collide? Each week on Lead Counsel, your host Tom Tona will take a deep dive into topics related to the law, the business of law, and life. There will be insightful discussions with industry insiders, experts, and thought leaders making significant contributions and meaningful differences in their fields of expertise. Tom is the founder and managing attorney at TonaLaw. He has been a practicing attorney since 1994 and the leader of TonaLaw since it opened in 2001. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with free information on law and the business of law, and to give you actionable tools related to each of these areas. Now, here's Tom.
And I have a special guest, Emerson Souza, who is my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor. I can't tell you the amount of contribution he's made to my life, so I think that this podcast is going to be a game changer for a lot of people. Emerson, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. So for you, what are some of the biggest takeaways and lessons that you think jiu-jitsu instills in people or instilled in you?
If you really value what you get from jiu-jitsu, I think it's the honesty, jiu-jitsu give you there. I think that's everything in life.
Honesty with self.
Honesty with yourself. Like I say, my story, I was 11 years old. So when you there, I think people see you through you, I know sometimes we say something, the other person don't like it, but it's you not honest with that person. I think that's what the best lesson jiu-jitsu gave to me, everybody's close to me knows I'm clear, you can't go and look at me and look through me, knows what I say. If I have to say anything to a close friend to me, I'm going to say because I know later on it's going to turn to a good thing for them. And I did that my whole life. You know, some people I know, and I told the guy, look, you do wrong, you do that, he's going to no, I'm a true friend. I'm honest with them, I'm not just they teach or when I used to be a student too. Now I'm honest, hey, I want to learn this. I want to honestly bring the other stuff, bring you humble person, bring you good listen, because you're honest with you. That's, I think, jiu-jitsu giving me there,
It's so funny as you're talking, right? So I'm thinking about how it relates to my business and who I am. So we have these core values in my business, right? And you mentioned humility. Well, humility is part of growth mindset. Growth mindset for us is one of our core values, right? If you have a growth mind versus a fixed mindset, you are humble and you're on a constant quest for answers, for truth, and you're questioning, right? You're not, I know everything and I'm the best. And that's what's great about jiu-jitsu in general, because the first thing it does is it breaks you. It breaks your ego. Yeah. You have no choice but to walk in humble or you will get humble. And even if you walk in humble, you're going to get humbler because, there are these things called mat enforcers, right? And mat enforcers are at every school and it's typically a very talented student. And they're there to stop people from being bullied and getting the crap kicked out of them by somebody who might come in off the street or whatever. And I always love that concept because ego plays such a big part of life, but it's all fake, right?
Yes.
Really, it's fake, right? So that's the other thing is that jiu-jitsu humbled me at a time I needed to be humbled. And it makes you better. It rounds out your rough edges because you realize ego comes from a place of fear, I think. You had written me when we were talking about you coming on the podcast. You said, what inspired you to join jiu-jitsu? What inspired me to join jiu-jitsu? Yes. And I was reflecting on that for a while today. And if I'm being very truthful, raw, it was fear, right? I always loved the martial arts. I trained karate, I trained Aikido, but I was bullied as a kid and I got my ass kicked by a wrestler who held me down the way you held me down that first class, and I was helpless. So around 40, I was my mindset was, I want to do what I'm scared to do, right? So then I went to 5 different jiu-jitsu schools, but I'm 40 years, I would think I was 38 at the time. I was 38.
Yeah.
And one school was oh, you're too old. You got to go into an executive class. Remember I told you that story?
Yeah,
okay. And then another guy who I won't mention names because people in the community know him. Yeah. He decided he was going to walk off the mat because a pretty girl walked by. Yeah. So he walked out of the school while a pretty girl walked by, and I was like, this is not what I'm looking for. Yeah. Then I found your school, and you were executive class, that's bullshit. You come into regular class, right? And, I was in shape. I was what I thought was good shape, not jiu-jitsu shape, but I was in, weightlifting shape. But I was scared. And that was the first hurdle, was doing something I was scared to do. I was scared because I was bullied my whole life. And I realized I had this deep-seated fear, even with all the martial arts training. It didn't go away till jiu-jitsu, right? Till I realized, oh, even at 150 pounds, a 200-pound guy, even to this day, will have trouble holding me down if he's untrained.
Yes.
If he's untrained.
Yes.
And I realized that, I think I told you the story. I went to Miami for a jiu-jitsu camp.
Yeah.
And the stuff you taught, the core basic, always about the basics and relaxation and I held my own against guys way heavier than me with the same skill set and training. I held my own even with my broken up hips. Remember, I had arthritis in my hips. Yeah. So jiu-jitsu, because of the way you taught it, like the way you taught me and the people that I came up with and the instructors you had at the school who basically were like, you're second generation, you're a second generation Gracie. So they were like third generation.
Yes.
I mean, the instructors you have at the school are fantastic. They were all good friends of mine, and they're brilliant. They're brilliant at jiu-jitsu, right? And they're great people. They're all just like you. That's why they're all part of my, inner circle of friends. That's what made me join, was I wanted to do something I was terrified of doing. I walked into this school and the first person I see walking off the mat is Ivan and Jared at the time.
Right.
And one of them had blood coming out of their eye and they were all giving us this mean, muggy look. And I'm like, what the hell? Same feeling you had. Yeah. What did I just get myself into? And what was awesome was I did it anyway. So think about how much that changed me in that one moment. But again, you made it inviting. And look, I'm never going to, listen, we talked about this. I'm a black belt, but I ain't a black belt like you. I'm never going to be a world champion black belt. I'm just not. But I love jiu-jitsu. I love the gifts that it gave me. And if I'm being honest, I sucked for most of the time I trained, right? I still probably suck compared to most of the guys that are on, but I got better every day. It sucked a little bit less every day. And you made it inviting where jiu-jitsu was for everybody. So like if Juliet, who's 23, walks in, you're going to make sure she feels comfortable and you're going to teach her at her level.
Yes.
That was another lesson I took away. In my law firm, I talk to people in a way that works for them. We use testing to determine how they like to be managed. And we manage on an individual tailored basis. We have 35 people working for us now. So certain people respond different ways. And that I learned that from you, right? So you'll take a guy who's a high level wrestler.
Always they're going to respond in different ways because different person. We're not the same.
Yeah.
And then I think for me, jiu-jitsu taught me that wait a sec. I training with different guys is different training. When it comes to, like I say to you all the time, I love to talk to you. I have I don't need to mention names here, but a lot of friends and I listen and I learn from them. And that's the same thing what you do for life. You work with a lot of people. You don't know everything. You got to sometimes listen to them and say, wait a sec. We when you buy a TV or you got the instruction.
Yeah.
We need to, they knows our instruction, like how you're going to understand them and how you understand them too,
Yeah.
So that's
we use a test called a disc test when we hire people now. And we've been doing it for probably 12 years, probably as long as I know you. And it's funny because I started coaching in another program that was for lawyers right around the same time I started jiu-jitsu. And they were so complementary to each other, right? So now we're talking about a concept of individualized management, right? So you have 36 people or you could have 300 people. If you use a disc test, it's like an instruction manual for people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
it tells you different personality types and how they like to be communicated with and how they like to be managed. So certain people don't like to be managed at all. They want to run it. Okay, no problem if you have those skills, right?
Yes.
Certain people want to be communicated with a lot of talking and others don't. So I had that epiphany from jiu-jitsu as well, is that I looked at what made you such an amazing instructor, right? And just an amazing human being. But when you're with somebody, you make them feel like they're the only person in the room, right? Like you are 100% focused. Yes. You got this laser-like focus on somebody. You look in them in the eye, you're listening, but you have this innate ability to read people from jiu-jitsu, I think, where, you always used to say, it's not what your opponent's going to do, feel what they're doing and then respond or move ahead of that move. You have this he's like a wizard, Jules. I can't explain it any other way, like when you roll with him, but he kind of knows what you're going to do before you do it. And he's anticipated every permutation of that move. And that's what makes you a world champion, right? But you're also a world champion of people. You're a reader of people. I learned that skill from you. I learned how to read people. I started studying it and, giving individualized, tailored management based on that. So that's kind of how it's evolved using a tool that I took from my other training, which was the leadership leadership training and marrying it up with the stuff I observed you doing, the way you would do private lessons, right? I used to watch you do privates, or the way you would just teach classes, you know? So it was this huge growth process over the last, I don't know, it's probably about 14 years now that I know you. I was 38 and I'm 54. So is that 16 years? Am I doing the math right?
17,
right?
16.
Every time I say how old I am, Juliet makes faces at me.
Let's hide it there. Me and you, we got to hide it there.
Yeah,
How
exactly. Exactly. So I think it's a good place for us to stop the podcast. I'm going to tell anybody that is interested in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, please check out Emerson Souza Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, home base in Baldwin, New York. If you're passing through, stop in. You'll be welcomed with open arms, and you'll be training along some just amazing practitioners and amazing people. And you'll probably be lucky enough at some point if you start training there that Emerson's there very frequently. So you're going to get the man, the myth, the legend, the superhero of my life, Emerson, on the mats with you. And he's not just talking, he's training, he's teaching, physically teaching you, and you'll feel jiu-jitsu. My man, thank you again.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Always, you know that.
Yeah. So
anytime.
I appreciate it, Em. This is Tom Tona. This is the Lead Counsel Podcast. I want to thank everybody for listening today. It will probably be broken up into 2 parts, but you can find us anywhere podcasts are distributed, on Spotify, Apple, Google. So please tune in, listen, download, share it with your friends, and leave us a 5-star review. All right. We out.